That's awesome. So obviously you are a man of many interests because I also know you like to read a lot. But let's get into tell us a little bit about your business. You know, for someone who's, let's say, act like never ever even heard of it before, what is your business?
Well, it is CrossFit Great North. Uh, that word CrossFit can be really intimidating for people. Um, Most people, when you say CrossFit, if they have any inkling of what it is, they've seen anything about it, the first thing out of their mouth is, "Oh, I could never do that." Right? But it's really too bad because nothing could be further from the truth. It's really just like what we do is we're just trying to help people find freedom through their health and fitness. And so we basically take you where you're at. We have a few different avenues. The CrossFit itself is a group training sort of atmosphere. So everybody comes into the class. There's a coach that leads everybody through the workout. It's the same workout, but it's just um, modified according to people's needs. And so it's just really a great sort of a group feeling. It's almost tribal. Like if you really break it down and you think about humans running around hunting animals 10,000 years ago, like they're working together, like working hard toward this common goal. And so there's just this kind of it's a different sort of connection that you get with people when you're working together like that. On the other side, there's also personal training. There's nutrition coaching. We do some custom programming as far as an exercise plan for people. And then now that the quarantine is underway, we're shifting a lot of our business online. So I've been running the group classes via Zoom, which works out okay. You certainly don't get the same sort of connection as in person, and we have very limited equipment, but we still make it work. But I've got a whole other online coaching platform that I'll hopefully be able to roll out here pretty quick, where you can have a much greater degree of control, so people can really, achieve their goals from home, from wherever they are. And that's basically what we're after. Now, what's the big deal with health and fitness? I remember growing up, I'd be working out, and my grandpa would be like, "That's not work," and to valid point, we're picking stuff up, putting it down, we're putting it away again. You don't actually get anything that's concrete that you can see that you've done. But the world that we live in right now is not, there's not 90% of people living on farms. It's maybe 10%. It's probably a lot less than that. And even the nature of the farm has changed. Manual labor is still alive and well. There's a lot of different contracting gigs out there. But for the most part, people are living a very sedentary life. And so when you think about like the bar for survival, it's much lower, and it doesn't take much to meet it. And so what we're really doing is we're just kind of raising that bar for survival, because your body needs to have a challenge to adapt to in order to get stronger. It's the only way. We are adaptation machines. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So if you sit on the couch all the time, all you do is get real good at sitting on the couch or the desk. And so you have to go beyond that and find those challenges that stimulate your body to get stronger, to get better. And that goes for your mind. That goes for all aspects of health. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. No, that's actually awesome. I love that. I'm going to start with a comment, because you basically described me in a nutshell, where I sit at my desk in my office, and I might move to the other room to sit for a meeting for basically, let's say, 10 hours a day, but I'm just sitting here, right? So one of my biggest challenges is motivating myself. I use emotional energy, but one of my biggest challenges is finding the motivation to use physical energy outside of outside my workspace. And I know for myself, if I don't do it in the morning, the chance I do it after work has gone down tremendously. So I think that's it's a good analogy used there. But I want to go back to one thing you mentioned of rolling out the online coaching. Is that something that you want to do just during COVID-19 chaos, stay-at-home orders, or is that something you want to do in addition to your in-person CrossFit once life gets a little bit back to normal?
Sure. So that's actually been something that I've been trying to get into more and more over the past, even couple years, but with all the other things going on, it's been hard to give it the attention that it needs to actually make it go. I actually bought into this platform back in December, and I've been kind of working through it. I've had a few different clients that we've been experimenting with just to try to see how it all works. But it's definitely the direction a lot of the market is going towards anyway, and it's definitely a way that I can help reach more people. So I'm planning on this being a permanent part of my business going forward.
Cool. And then just so anyone for who's watching us, we haven't mentioned this yet, where is your business, the physical location?
That is an excellent question. Right now, it's in my basement, right over there. This is the South Branch of CrossFit Great North. But the actual, brick and mortar location is inside the Racquetball Club in Thief River Falls. So right now the sign's Wild Side. You remember it as the old Racquetball Club, as Family Time, Racquetball and Fitness. But it's right across the street from McDonald's. So when we go out running, we get to run past the big windows, all that.
Of the food you probably shouldn't be eating, right? No offense to those who love McDonald's, but I just wanted to say that because for anyone who watches our videos that's not from Thief River Falls, they may not know exactly where that is, but hopefully, we can figure it out with Google and things like that. But Tate and I both live in Thief River Falls, Minnesota, or at least around it, which for anyone who isn't aware, if you basically draw on the map 60 miles south of the Canadian border and like 45 miles east of the North Dakota border, that's pretty much where we're at. So, ironically, if you ask people what North was when I went to college down in the cities, they would say Duluth. They forget there's another half of the state up here where we enjoy living, which I think is kind of funny. But you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about what your business is. But if you were going to, if specifically responding to the question of what value do you try or do you intend to provide your clients?
Right. So for me, it's all about freedom. When you say you add a little bit more weight, you get a personal record in a lift. Like, that's great. That's part of the process. But what I care about is how it translates into your life outside the gym. So a lot of the people that come to me are in pain. They've lost function. Maybe they can't walk right, or their shoulders all jacked up, or there's all kinds of things that people have walked through my door with. And my goal is I got to get people out of pain if they're in pain. If they've lost function, we need to get their function up. Then we need to start bringing their capacity up so that they can use their fitness to go and do the things they love with the people they care about, right? The other side of that is with chronic disease. So if you look at this massive healthcare crisis that we've been in for the past couple of decades, a major portion of this giant $3.25 trillion bill that we get every year comes from conditions that are chronic and preventable, right? So a massive portion of that bill can be prevented if we just make better decisions around our lifestyle. Now, that is all well and good. You start talking statistics and all that, people's eyes glaze over. But if you think about you or anybody else hasn't been affected by one of these chronic diseases at some point, you're definitely in the minority. When I talk about my grandfather, he had Alzheimer's disease, prostate cancer. So I watched him hit that downward spiral with quite a bit in the nursing home and whatnot during that time. And, watched my grandma, watched my family watch that happen. It's absolutely tragic, right? And whether you're talking about heart disease, whether you're talking about cancer, you're talking about diabetes, there's all kinds of different conditions that fall under that umbrella where they can be largely prevented if we live our lives in the right way. We avoid doing the wrong thing, and so it's freedom from that tragic end is the other side. That's far down the road, and obviously there's no guarantees. But I tell you what, I'd much rather be doing the things right now that are going to put me tap dancing at my 80th birthday party than sitting in a nursing home the way my grandfather was. And I think that I want to take as many people with me to that end as I can. I don't want to do that to my family. I don't want to put them through that same. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a, it's an amazing goal to have. And it's unfortunate that it's so much easier for us to feel emotions of what's happening today rather than what could happen in 20 years. But going back to your comment about if you don't use it, you lose it. I'm not a doctor. Don't quote me, but I know I've read that for males especially, if in retirement you don't do anything, you don't use your brain, you just kind of watch TV, like you don't have a social life, our life expectancy gets cut in half, right?
oh
So
yeah,
that's just one of the many examples of if you don't use it, if you don't use your heart from an exercise standpoint, you don't use your muscles, if you don't use your brain, whatever, they do deteriorate. And I think it's an amazing thing of how hard it is to understand what could happen in the future and how we can affect that today. And that's where one of my favorite sayings, I'm not great at following it all the time, but the pain of discipline is much less than the pain of regret. I remind
absolutely.
myself of that daily, and I'm not perfect at it by any means, but going back to you a little bit, I know you obviously live a very healthy life. Are you someone that believes that you should avoid, fast food, alcohol, tobacco, all these things all the time, or is moderation key? Like, are you okay with a drink of wine once in a while, or a beer, or whatever on a weekend or something like that? What's your personal belief when it comes to things we know aren't healthy for us, but we just do them once in a while?
Sure. So here's the thing. Your health is on a spectrum, and it's based on the decisions that you make every day, right? So you get to choose where you're at on that spectrum. You want to eat out of the dumpster behind McDonald's every day, you certainly can. It's probably going to negatively affect your life expectancy and quality of life. You could also move to, Patagonia and live in a cave on the beach and eat hermit crabs, whatever, live like be in the sun. You could have this phenomenally healthy life, like as natural and whatever as possible. Most people aren't willing to do that either. So we're all going to land somewhere in between. And it's really important to understand that it's our choice and that we're responsible for picking our place on that spectrum. Now, I try to live along the principles that I believe in as much as possible. But I think that in the world that we live in right now, if you don't have a very, if you don't have a burning reason to be perfect, then trying to be perfect is probably going to be less good for you in the long run in terms of mentally than not worrying about it. If you look at people who are truly healthy, a big part of it is they're not stressed out about food. They're not stressed out about enjoying a drink with their friends. Those things are part of having a happy and healthy life. It's when there's an excess. It's when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, got a problem here. It's when you notice that your performance, whatever, is not where it needs to be. You go and you get a physical and you've got a blood test and it's showing you've got some things to take care of. If you can be, 90% good all the time, great. If sometimes you're 80%, that's okay too, as long as you understand that that's one little event. It's not your whole life. Consistency over time is what really makes the changes, and it's what really gets you where you want to go. One perfect day, one perfect week that's not the whole picture. So it's going to depend on your goals, but the biggest thing is to get some simple principles, get some basic habits going, and stick to it. And that's going to take you where you want to go. Now, if you see that, I maybe want to go farther up the spectrum, make some tweaks, and then you can ratchet yourself up a little bit. That's kind of the long-term sustainable look. And I think that's the best way myself.